As a white person, do white people ever choose to oppress and hate other groups of white people, or is it strictly limited to oppressing people who have more melanin than we do? Because I'm noticing repetitive patterns over the course of human history where we target indigenous people, or we target black people, or we target Middle Eastern people, or Vietnamese people, or Chinese people, or Korean people, or Iranian people, or Palestinian people. And it just makes me wonder, why is it, and I'm as white as we get, why is it that the only people white people ever choose to oppress are those who have more melanin? I see the question a lot of, what is fascism? What is fascism? Fascism is an authoritarian style political structure in which a hierarchy is desired, whether it is a racial hierarchy, a religious hierarchy. It is not a political structure based on equality and human dignity and servitude of your neighbor. It is strictly based on how you can provide for those who create that hierarchical, I think that's a word, that structure of hierarchy that says, unless you are an ethno-Christian white person, you are not as good as, or you are not valued equally. That is fascism, guys. We are in full-fledged fascism. If you are not a white Christian person in the United States of America, you are not safe. You are not safe. If you have more melanin than a white person in the United States, you are not safe under this administration. It's disgusting.
Man, I tell you what, nothing makes racist white people more pissed off than me, a white person, trying to educate about racism and trying to educate about what white privilege is and all these things. And it's so funny because these same people will argue with me till they are blue in the face about how they're not racist and we don't live in a racist institution and black and brown people have it so easy and racism doesn't exist anymore. But then they will turn around and say the most racist, ignorant, vile shit you've ever heard in your life. The disconnect is amazing. And this is why I make content like this, because it's so important, because we do live in a racist institution and we are all raised in racism as white people. This is simply a fact. And the crazy part about it is every one of us knows this. Even the ones who will sit there and fight with me to the death about it and act like it doesn't exist. Y'all know white people are racist. Y'all know about the casual racism, the casual microaggressions that we are raised in, no matter where we live in this United States of America. And this is why I will never stop. I will never stop trying to educate as a white person about racism and how we need to learn. We need to evolve. We need to do better. It's almost as if they feel like admitting to a racist institution or admitting to racism makes them this evil, terrible person. And so they would rather double down than to grow and be a good person. And that's so bad, because all that says to me is that you have a small mind and a cowardly soul. And I wish better for you than that, truly, because everything in your life will get better when you stop being so ignorant.
White people, let's talk about it. Let's talk about our violence. White violence. No more deflecting. No more blaming everything on everybody else. Let's confront ourselves. White people in America, our history is so extremely violent. And instead of confronting that, we continue to blame other people for the issues and the problems in this country, instead of just taking ownership of our part to play in everything, which is a huge part. Can we stop scapegoating other groups of people, please, and just look at ourselves? White people, it's time to talk about it. Like, it's long past time. Getting rid of other groups of people in this country is not going to make this country better. It's not going to make your life better. It's not going to make you better. I think white people are so scared to talk about race and to talk about white violence and white supremacy because they don't want to connect themselves to it. We don't want to feel like we're a part of the problem. But unless you're acknowledging the reality of how the US, this country, runs, you are a part of the problem. I truly believe in my heart, in my soul, that if you're born a white person in this country or on this planet, but I'll just speak about this country, part of that journey is to dismantle systems that have been built to oppress other people. The hard work of life is to confront yourself. How do I benefit from the way that things are? And how does my benefiting from those things harm other people? And instead of walking around with, 1,000-pound bag of shame on your back, consider it your responsibility to do that work. Consider it an opportunity that you are in the best possible position to make this world a better place by not accepting racist and prejudiced and oppressive systems for what they are and trying to contribute to changing them. Use the privilege that you have for good. I don't think that anybody can ever really love themselves without being honest about themselves, without being honest with themselves. And that work is painful and hard, but it's so worth it. White people, you don't have to consciously think that you're better than other people in order to contribute to harm against them. All it takes to contribute to harm is to stay silent and disengaged. White people, can we finally get this shit right? Can we finally take accountability? Can we finally look ourselves in the mirror and decide that this isn't good enough? We're not doing a good enough job. You aren't losing because somebody else is safe and cared for. You aren't losing because somebody different than you exists. White people, let's talk about it. Let's start having these conversations with ourselves and with each other. It's time.
I think I'm getting a little closer to understanding why men my age, particularly white men, are so angry and bitter and upset with everyone that doesn't look like them. And women as well, they're upset with women too. And I think all it is, and you get a great insight into the minds of these people when you read the comments that they post on TikTok. And so that's where I get a lot of my, I guess for want of a better word, understanding on how they think. Anyway, what seems to have happened is in the 50s, right, all the guy had to do was be a financial provider. He could go to work, not offer any emotional support or vulnerability or awareness or intelligence, not bring anything emotional into a relationship. His component was purely financial. And that was fine in the 50s. It was great. Well, I don't think it was great, but that particular mindseted person would say that was great. And I think that's what they mean when they say, I'll make America great again. I think it's kind of, that might be a period in time that they did consider great. Anyway, what's happened is women have proven themselves to be just as competent in that area as men, if not more so. So women are now amazing financial providers and well set up financially. A lot of women are, not all, but a lot. And that's unsettling for the average white man with an emotional IQ of a piece of wood. Because those women now no longer need a man to be a provider. It's purely that they would enter into a relationship as an equal, not as, and potentially the guy could be dependent on the woman, which makes me chuckle. Anyway, so what's happening is guys are realizing that they bring fuck all to the table, and they don't offer anything that women can't do for themselves and probably do better. So they're now confronted with this cold, harsh reality of women don't want or need them for that reason, and they're floundering. They don't know what to do. I mean, the answer is very simple. They could evolve and spend some time getting to become emotionally intelligent, perhaps. Maybe get in touch with their feelings. Could be something they might look at. But no, these particular people, these guys, they won't do that. That's too hard. So what they do instead is they blame everyone else. Blame women. Blame minorities. Blame DEI. And that's the other thing. All DEI has done has removed the advantage that they've had for so many years, where they could be a lazy ass, no hoper, nothing going for them except that they're white and they're a man and they're in the club. So they waltz on into a job without ever having proved themselves or even deserving that position. And now they've lost that advantage. And that's the other reason why they're so angry.
Okay, white people, listen. This racism stuff is our problem to fix, not black people. We have to fix this problem, okay? And if you're white and you're watching this video right now, we were taught racism, okay? It was taught to us, okay? So this is not about labeling or anything like that. This is a problem that we need to deal with, okay? And the first thing that we need to do as white people, when a person of color comes to us and says something is racist, you just listen. Listen. No debate. No debate. Listen. Listen. Good babies. Yes, that's the first thing that we need to do.
A lot of people are still trying to act like racial division in America is just about a few bad people saying hateful things. But the truth is much deeper than that. The system of division was built into the foundation of this country itself. It was never only about hate. It was about power, control, identity, wealth, and keeping people separated. That is why after hundreds of years, people are still talking about the same problems today. One thing many people are finally starting to realize is that the concept of whiteness in America was politically and socially created to unite European settlers under the identity while separating them from black people. Before coming to America, many Europeans identified as Irish, German, English, or something else, but over time those identities became secondary to the idea of being white. That identity came with privileges, social advantages, and access to power that other groups were denied. The system worked because it convinced ordinary people that no matter how poor they were still above black people in the society. They created separations between working class communities that otherwise may have united against the elite controlling wealth and power. Instead of people coming together over economic struggle, race became the tool used to divide them. That division protected the people at the top. When you really study American history honestly, you start to understand why racial hierarchy became so important to the system. Indigenous people were removed from their lands. African people were enslaved and forced into labor that built enormous wealth for the country. Entire histories, cultures were erased and rewritten. Then generations were taught simplified versions of history that made colonization and conquest seem normal. So that is why conversations about discriminations are still so emotional today. People are not just arguing about the past, they are arguing about the system that is still in shape presently today. Housing patterns, wealth inequalities, educational gaps, policing, employment, and discriminations did not just appear out of nowhere. Many of these issues are connected to structures that were built generations ago. Another thing people ignore is how this system of division also damaged the society itself. A structure built on domination eventually poisons everything around it. When a country teaches people to fear each other, compete against each other, and view certain groups as threats, it creates constant tensions. instability, and many communities today are disconnected, angry, isolated, and distrustful because the division has been normalized for so long. And what's really interesting is that more white Americans are starting to openly question this system their ancestors participated in. Some are realizing that the same structures once used to oppress minorities are now hurting working class people across the board. Economical inequality is growing, corporations have massive controls, people are struggling to survive financially, and many are beginning to see that the system was never really designed for ordinary people to win equally. That does not mean discrimination has disappeared totally. Far from it. Bias and unequal treatment still exist in direct and indirect form. Some people still openly discriminate while others benefit from the system that may have not been fully recognized. The problem is that many want to reduce these issues to individual behaviors only because discussing systemic changes make people uncomfortable. It forces the society to examine difficult truths, history, and privilege alongside power. At the same time, conversations like these become dangerous when they turn into hatred against entire group of people, blaming all white people for history or treating violence as a solution only creates another circle of division. The goal should not be to revenge or destruction. The goal should be honesty, accountability, understanding, and change. Real progress starts when people stop pretending that the past has nothing to do with the present. It starts when history is taught honestly instead of selectively. It starts when people understand that systems can outlive the generations that created them. Even if the law changes, attitudes, institutions, and economic structures can continue carrying inequality forward in easier ways. America also has another major problem. Many people are struggling with identity and belonging. A society built heavily around conquest, capitalism, competition often leaves people disconnected from culture, community, and even themselves. The emptiness creates fear, defensive anger. Some people respond by becoming more nationalistic, more tribal, or more hostile towards anyone they think threatens their place in the society.